It was supposed to be a simple trip home, but on the night of October 22nd, 2025, tragedy struck in the quiet skies over Ikalaka, Montana. A helicopter carrying 4 members of the Bailey family, Zachary, Kelsey, and their 2 young children, Vada and Samuel, went down without warning. The news spread like wildfire across Illinois. In a matter of hours, what began as whispers of an aviation incident turned into the unthinkable. Confirmation that the family of Darren Bailey, the former Illinois state senator and 2026 gubernatorial candidate, had been lost in a devastating crash. Witnesses reported seeing the aircraft moments before it disappeared from radar. Authorities later confirmed that Zachary, who was piloting the helicopter himself, had been flying home from a convention in Montana, a route he had flown many times before, but this time, something went terribly wrong in the wreckage. Investigators found no signs of foul play, only the haunting reality of a flight that never made it home. The crash site, surrounded by miles of open fields, became a place of mourning, where silence spoke louder than words. And while the world grieved with Darren Bailey, one small miracle emerged from the ashes. 10-year-old Finley, Zachary, and Kelsey's oldest son, survived simply because there wasn't enough room on board. He had stayed behind that day, unaware that a twist of fate would make him the only surviving child of the Bailey family. For Darren Bailey, that night in Montana didn't just mark the loss of his son and grandchildren, it marked the moment his world changed forever. But 1 week later, through heartbreak and faith, he found the strength to speak, and his words left an entire state in tears. For days, silence surrounded the Bailey family, a silence heavy with grief, disbelief, and heartbreak. But exactly 1 week after the tragedy, Darren Bailey finally spoke. On October 29th, the Illinois governor candidate shared a post on X, the platform once known as Twitter. The message was short, simple, and heartbreakingly human. Accompanied by a photo of his late son Zachary, his daughter-in-law Kelsey, and their 2 children, Vada and Samuel, Bailey wrote, "Cindy and I are deeply grateful for the outpouring of love, prayers, and support our family has received." He then shared the words, "No parent should ever have to write," a message confirming the names and ages of the 4 precious lives lost, and honoring the single child who survived, Finnley Tate. Now surrounded by family and love, in that moment, politics faded away. Campaigns, elections, and rallies didn't matter anymore. What mattered was a father's grief and the strength it took to speak. When his world had fallen apart, Bailey also announced plans for a celebration of life service, choosing to focus not on the tragedy, but on the light his family brought to others. Instead of flowers or gifts, he requested donations for Finley's future, a gesture that turned heartbreak into hope. His message resonated far beyond Illinois. Thousands of comments flooded in, from supporters, opponents, and strangers alike, all united in compassion. For once, the internet wasn't divided by politics. It was bound by empathy. It was a moment of raw vulnerability, showing that behind every public figure lies a human heart, one that breaks, bleeds, and somehow still believes. But this story wasn't just about loss. It would soon ripple through the political world, shaking the very campaign Darren Bailey had worked years to build. The shockwaves from the Montana helicopter crash didn't just strike a family, they rattled the very core of Illinois politics. Darren Bailey wasn't just any grieving father. He was a leading candidate for governor, gearing up for a 2026 campaign that had been gaining serious momentum. His name had been making headlines for months, his rallies drawing crowds across the state. But in the wake of the tragedy, everything stopped. Campaign events were canceled. Ads were pulled. The once bustling headquarters went silent. In its place emerged something new, what his running mate, Aaron Del Mar, called the Bailey Support Team. No longer about politics, this movement turned into a lifeline. Volunteers, donors, and community members came together not to talk strategy, but to bring meals, offer prayers, and wrap the Bailey family in comfort. As Del Mar told people, "You can quote me on this. I don't care about politics right now. I care about this family." It was a rare and powerful moment in the often cynical world of campaigning. Competitors paused their attacks. Political allies and even rivals reached out with condolences. Darren Bailey, once seen as a tough-talking conservative voice, became a symbol of raw human grief and faith. And perhaps most moving of all, his son Zachary had shared his father's dream. Reports say he hoped to follow in his father's footsteps, stepping into public service himself one day. That dream, now cut short, added an even deeper layer of heartbreak to the loss. But for those who knew the Baileys best, they say this tragedy has only revealed what the family stood for all along: faith, service, and unshakable community values. Still, as the political world paused to grieve, many wondered who exactly was the man behind this tragedy. The son, whose light touched so many lives before it was suddenly gone? That answer would come through the stories shared by those who knew him best, painting a portrait of a man whose kindness and faith left a legacy far beyond politics to the world. Darren Bailey was a political name, but to those closest to him, his son Zachary was the heartbeat of the Bailey family, a devoted husband, a loving father of three, and a man whose quiet strength mirrored his father's determination. Zachary wasn't just following his father's footsteps. He was carving his own path built on service, faith, and purpose. He was a licensed helicopter pilot, a skill he didn't learn for luxury or adventure, but for something far more meaningful. According to Bailey's running mate Aaron Del Mar, Zachary had learned to fly through a Christian ministry program that trained pilots to deliver food and medicine to people in remote, developing areas. It wasn't just flying, it was an act of service. A mission that same spirit carried into everything he did, from helping run the family farm in Xenia, Illinois, to flying his father and campaign team to events across the state. As Del Mar recalled, "We were in that helicopter for 8 hours at a time, going from stop to stop. And the way he spoke about his father and his mom with such respect, you could tell he was raised on faith and gratitude." Who met Zachary described him as a man who never sought attention, but left a mark on everyone he met. A husband who adored his wife Kelsey, a father who lived for his kids, and a friend who would drop everything to help someone in need. When people talk about the Baileys now, they don't just speak of tragedy, they speak of legacy. A legacy of service, kindness, and deep-rooted belief in something bigger than themselves. And for Darren Bailey, it's what hurts the most and what keeps him going. His son wasn't just his pride, he was his mirror. The man who carried his values forward, but the Bailey story didn't end with Zachary. Behind their tragedy lies a family built on unshakable faith, one that's now drawing strength from the very community. They spent years serving, because, even in their darkest hour, the Bailey family's commitment to helping others has never wavered. At the heart of the Bailey's family story lies something deeper than politics, deeper than public life, faith. For decades, Darren Bailey and his family have been known across southern Illinois not just for their work ethic, but for the way they serve others. Their roots run deep in Xenia, a small farming town where everyone knows everyone. The Baileys didn't just grow crops, they grew a community. Together, they founded a Christian school, started a nutrition business, and launched local programs to help families in need. Every project they touched reflected the same message: faith, family, and service above all else. It wasn't about recognition or reward. It was about purpose. Helping neighbors, mentoring kids, supporting local churches. These weren't occasional acts of kindness. They were the rhythm of the Bailey family's life. And Zachary carried that same torch proudly, teaching his own children the values he'd learned at home after the crash. People from across Illinois, farmers, teachers, pastors, and small business owners began sharing stories of how the Baileys had touched their lives. One neighbor spoke about how Zachary once helped rebuild a barn after a storm. Another recalled how Darren and his wife Cindy quietly paid a struggling family's bills one winter. These weren't headlines. They were moments of quiet compassion that now echo louder than ever. Their friend and campaign partner, Aaron Del Mar, said it best: "The Baileys have always been about faith and family. They don't just talk about their beliefs, they live them." That's what makes this tragedy so devastating for those who knew them. It wasn't just the loss of a political figure's family, it was the loss of people who had spent their lives giving back. People whose kindness had shaped an entire community. Yet even in heartbreak, the Bailey family's example continues to inspire. Their story has become a reminder that true legacy isn't built on titles or positions, it's built on love, generosity, and unwavering faith. And while the Bailey's small town now mourns together, they also stand together, united in the same faith that the family always preached and lived by in the middle of so much loss. One small light remains: Finnley Tate, just 10 years old, the only surviving member of his immediate family. His survival feels almost unreal, the kind of twist that makes people pause and whisper about Fa.